This is an intervention. We have to talk. Cryptic, we have to talk. Okay, you have a problem. And before, look, I'm going to get really critical in here, so let me be positive right up front. I'm a ship fan, and ship fans have been really eating well over the course of this Terran Mirror Universe arc. We've got some really cool stuff, really cool ships. The Hydra is this really cool ship. The Valdris is really cool. I'm a big fan of the Cygnus, even though I shouldn't be. I feel like I should hate the Cygnus with that deflector down the center of the saucer. I feel like that's a flaw. That's a bit of a flaw in the design. It really breaks up the organic lines of the design. But for some reason, I can't bring myself to dislike it. I adore the thing, and I don't really understand why. Maybe it's like that sour note that just brings a jazz song together, you know? Either way, I really love the Cygnus. You're going to have to pardon me also because I'm getting over something. I wanted to record this separately because if I go into this while I'm playing the actual mission, that's gonna take hours and hours because I'm probably gonna be talking forever. But we gotta talk, Cryptic, because you have a problem, and that problem is boss design. I'm not saying this to be offensive. I'm not saying this to be rude. I'm not saying this to be... I'm not angry with you. I'm just disappointed. Okay? Cryptic has a problem with boss design. They can't do it. They keep... Cryptic, you keep wanting to have bosses, but your desire to shoehorn in some big boss encounter is affecting your design. And I can think of no better example than the Kumarke fight, the Mirror Kumarke fight, where Taco Fangs had this vision of like a really functional, really elaborate redo of the Odyssey Bridge that he wanted to build for players and build for the future so that it can be connected to all kinds of stuff like doors and ready rooms and conference lounges and stuff. Like that front area, like that big open area that's full of nothing on the Odyssey Bridge, he wanted to turn into a really cool conference room. And that was a fantastic idea. Like he was going to partition off like the front quarter of that bridge into like an observation lounge, and so this new Enterprise, and by extension the player ships, would have a functional meeting room. It would make it would complete an already gorgeous bridge design with the Lexington class bridge. But he wasn't allowed to do that because you had to have an area at the front of the bridge for players to like respawn or find shelter or safety from the dumb Kumarke boss fight where she fills the room with crap. She fills the room with big instant death hazards and all kinds of Mirror Universe security officer ads show up. And she goes into like a stage where she's invulnerable and you have to fight the ads, and then she's vulnerable and then you have to damage her, and then she goes back to being invulnerable and you have to fight the ads, all while dodging all this crap that's filling the screen. It's not good! It's not good! And because of that, Taco Fang's wonderful idea, his wonderful concept for that bridge was hamstrung. And he couldn't do it. And what did you end up using that area of the bridge for? What was the big plan for that area of the bridge? It was a place for NPCs to stand around so the player could talk to them. Essentially, it was a conference room at the front of the bridge. It's just a bunch of empty space that you wanted to have Sean and Mirror Lita and such like stand around and just like talk to them. Imagine what you could have done with cutscenes in the conference room aboard the Enterprise. All that is gone now because you had to shoehorn in that fight. And you ended up using that area of the breach for the same purpose anyways. Your desire to squeeze in boss fights that are not good, okay? They're not good, is compromising your design. And a lot of these fights don't even make sense. Let's talk about Wesley. Let's talk about phenomenal cosmic powers, master of time and space, Emperor Wesley Crusher. All he does, I just talked about like the cycle of like, they're invulnerable, fight the adds, they're vulnerable, fight them, they're invulnerable again, fight the adds. That's all Wesley does. Is he spawns adds at you, and then he spawns adds of himself that are pushovers. The whole fight with Wesley is laughable. It's so pathetic. He's so pathetic. This guy is essentially beating V'ger in a contest of wills and sheer cosmic might, and he's a joke when you fight him. Like, you had to have a boss fight against Emperor Crusher just to have a boss fight against Emperor Crusher. Nothing about that fight makes any sense. You have to deploy some, like, weird countermeasure. I don't know what I've played that mission, like, 4 times now. I don't know what that countermeasure is that we're deploying. Like, I know that, like, apparently Crusher was, like, working on it, but I still don't know what the hell it is. Maybe that was supposed to be explained in the mission that got cut and just turned into the birdcage, because I know there was supposed to be at least 2 missions on the anniversary. There is no point to this boss fight because there is literally nothing we can do against somebody with all the powers of Seeker and Wesley Crusher. He can literally just stop time. He is Dio from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. He's worse than Dio. He's Poochie. He literally has Made in Heaven. He can like he can do whatever the hell he wants. He can freeze time. He can accelerate time. He can reverse time. He can travel through time. He can travel at the speed of thought. Sometimes less is more. And sometimes, like, a boss doesn't need to be invulnerable, facing down an army of adds. If the opponent is interesting enough and the story being told, I'm not talking about the story arc, right? I'm not talking about the overall story. I'm talking about the individual story of that scenario, of the fight itself. If that story is good enough, then it doesn't matter. You don't need to make them invincible and like spawn endless adds on someone. You did the same thing with the Inquisitor also. And there were like tons of like instant kill environmental hazards in that room also. If the story is interesting enough, Bavat! Ambassador Bavat. Oh, Snow's first major villain. You never forget your first. I still remember. He wasn't a super boss. He didn't have invulnerability phases. But you know what I did? I told my officers to stand in the hallway, and I fought him one-on-one with a batleth. He wasn't a super boss. He didn't have all kinds of freaky powers. He didn't have invincibility phases. But after everything that I had been through, chasing this guy down in the storyline, And now, in knowing the full context, after speaking to his younger self, this fight was a personal one. This fight had meaning to it. So my character, he went in there, he pulled out a Batleth, and he fought him one-on-one. A one-on-one fight. With a one-on-one fight with Bavat for the fate of the galaxy. And it was difficult because Bavat was a friggin' sword master, and that was back in the early days of the game when that actually meant something. When sword masters would wreck you. It was a difficult fight, but he wasn't a super boss. He was just Bavat. It was a difficult fight, but I beat him. That was cool. That is a fight that I remember. I think I've said all I'm gonna. I've said my piece on the matter, so that when I finally do record, I'm not going to be talking for hours throughout that Seeker flyover in the Wesley fight. Probably just montage it out, to be honest, because it's really that fight is really underwhelming. He's such a pushover. It's funny. I was laughing when when he fell, like he falls and he smacks his spine into the dish on Seeker, and Wesley's like, oh my god, how old is Wesley? Oh my god, he was a teenager in the 60s. He's gotta be like 50 or 60 years old at this point. He fell, dude fell from how many feet in the air above this dish and slammed his spine into it on the way down. That guy's... Oh, that should be over. That's game. You ain't made... Oh my god, I'm not, I'm half his age. Right? Not even anywhere close. And if I hadn't made that fall, I know that would jack me up. If you take a fall from that height, you slam your spine into a sharp metal object, you ain't getting back up. That's it. Fight over. You ain't getting up after that. The need to pad the Seeker flyover scene with enemy with trash mobs, basically. Trash mobs. These guys are not a threat. They're not a threat at all. Right? If you are at level for this mission, these guys aren't threatening you. There's nothing there really is nothing they can do to you. Unless you're just woefully unequipped to deal with them. But by the time you get to this point, you're gonna have at least one really badass ship. And even if it's just a tier 5, you're gonna have that tier 5 kitted out just the way you want it by this point. And there's not gonna be a threat. If these ships are not there to pose a threat to you, why are they there? The answer is, they are there to pad the length of the sequence. And I feel like, back in Season 7, 8, or 9 of this game, they would not be there. Or at least, they would be there in substantially fewer numbers. Because the star of this sequence is not the enemy encounters, it's the art design. It's flying over Seeker and having that experience that the crew of the Enterprise in the motion picture must have had, looking at the size and scale of this thing that they're up against. And realizing just how small and powerless and out of their league they are against something that is basically the closest the Star Trek setting gets to a Lovecraftian style elder god, they don't win in the motion picture. The only way they survive is by giving V'ger what it wants. They are never not absolutely at this thing's mercy. And that is the whole point of that flyover, where you just see the Enterprise is bigger than an aircraft carrier. It's an enormous vessel, the original Enterprise is, and you see it's barely just a speck compared to this thing. That's cosmic horror. That's cosmic horror done right. Now, you could argue it's cosmic horror light, because the situation turns out to not be completely hopeless, but they are never not utterly helpless against this thing. Like, V'ger is not a foe. It is not something that you can combat and vanquish. It is essentially. And the placement of these mobs is catastrophic to that experience. Especially, there's this one moment where the ship is sort of like cresting, like a rise in the map. You're cresting a hill, right? And when you fly over this thing, you crest over that hill, you just see this, like you would see this huge expanse, the horizon. This thing is big enough to have a horizon. The horizon of Seeker stretching all the way down to the front of the vessel. And this experience would have been really, really effective and powerful. It would have been a potent moment for the player if they weren't suddenly ripped from it by the trash mobs placed right there at the top of that, right there at the top of that hill. Utterly destroys what the artists of this game were able to achieve. It robs the player of that moment. And the fact that you're constantly harried by these trash mobs and these other characters will not shut up. Like, Lita and Sean just keep trading barbs over and over again. Like, am I the crazy one? Am I the only one who understands how deeply screwed we are? Because otherwise, what was the point of that entire sequence? What was the point? Why not skip that sequence and go straight to the and go straight to that ground map like you did earlier when the Emperor's Dreadnought entered Seeker? You just skipped straight from space to ground. Why is this here? If it is not to perfectly, visually, viscerally illustrate how screwed you are. Your determination to shoehorn mobs and boss encounters into areas that would be better were they not there is compromising what you can achieve with the incredible talent that you have at your disposal. Look at that map of Seeker. Look at it. You have such amazing people working for you who can bring that to life. And you turned it into a slog through mobs and just constant poppin' dialogue of characters sniping at each other. Here's me literally armchairing, okay? I'm the designer of this game, and I have to, set up this map. I don't put enemy encounters there at all until the very end where you fight the compiler. Alright? Here's what I do. You fly over the thing and you scan it. And like Lita starts out really cocky, and Sean starts out, he's doing his Superman. Dave Rivas is doing the Superman thing, and you know, the Inquisitor is the only one who really fully comprehends how screwed we are. And the further you go across this thing, the more quiet everybody becomes as you scan this thing. And as you realize you are being scanned by this thing. Wesley knows you're coming. The Emperor knows you're coming. And Lita, with the power of the Pa-Wraiths, tried to fight the Emperor, and the Pa-Wraiths fled in terror from her. Lita, of all people, should be bricking herself right now. If she does joke, it should come off as just purely defensive. She's laughing at the situation to just keep herself from screaming in terror. And the rest, and everybody else who's present, the Inquisitor, Sean, they're not far off from that either. Everybody knows that the Emperor knows that you're coming. And so you're flying over this thing, and you just have through the music and the dialogue, you just get this overwhelming feeling of just the eyes of something ageless and terrifying and powerful just watching you fly over. Like you would watch, like if you had an ant crawling over your arm, right? And you just decide to just watch it for a while. Just watch it. That's the feeling that they should have gone for. And then at the very end, you know what? I wouldn't have even had the fight with the compiler. If I'm being perfectly blunt with you. I would have just had the thing open up at the very end. Like, it just opens up. Come on in. I'm waiting for you. Sometimes less, especially when it comes to horror. And V'ger, and by extension Seeker, is absolutely cosmic horror. Less is more. Atmosphere is everything. And I feel like they had the opportunity to make a really to have just this really harrowing moment in the game. It's just build and build and build this moment until the player and the captains of the other ships accompanying them are bricking themselves, terrified at what they're up against. And then he just opens up. Nothing happens. Come on in. Come here. Come to me. Because there is no hope. There's no hope. You're hopelessly screwed. And the Emperor knows that. And the only thing that could possibly save you is for lack of better terms, real Wesley Crusher showing up to back you up against him. That 11th hour miracle would be the only thing that would barely let you prevail here. You had Will Wheaton. That's what I think. That's the way I think they should have gone. That's probably the way that I'm going to go when I write this out for my tabletop setting, my tabletop version of like Stowe. That's probably the way I'm going to write it out, as how things played out. The Terran arc is in the rear view mirror for us. Did you like the Fujiwara effect? Did you think that this was a really flawed ending, or a perfect ending, or was there anything you would have done differently or changed? Let me know. I'll see you guys next week. Unless you're in my game, in which case I'll see you like before then. But still, the rest of you, the people just watching my videos. See you, everybody.